What is up, you guys? My name is Aubrey and this is my channel, and the inevitable has finally happened. I have received my denial letter from the SBA for the EIDL program, and so today I'm going to be discussing this. I'm going to talk about why I was denied, what this means for me and my business, and more importantly, what this means for you, what you can expect if you think that a denial is in your near future, and most importantly, what kind of the next steps are from here once you receive your denial and how you can potentially appeal this decision. So let's get started. So I applied for the EIDL grant program back in March, and it took me nearly a month to get my grant money. So I received my grant on April 30th, and I received $1,000 because I am an independent contractor. So with that, I qualified for one employee's worth of grant money. And a couple weeks after I received my grant money, I had finally had my credit pulled, and it was pulled from my Experian account. I got the notification about 2 weeks after I received my grant money. And once I got the notification that my credit had been pulled, I knew I wasn't going to be approved for this loan. You see, I do not have the best credit. In fact, I made a video about this a couple of months ago. If you're interested in checking that out and why I have bad credit and how I increased my credit score by over 50 points over the course of 1 month, then I will include that video link down in the description below. But as I record this, I have a credit score of just above 600, and so whenever I knew that credit was going to be something that the SBA took into account when qualifying people for the EIDL program, I knew that I was going to be denied. But I wasn't that stressed out about it because I wasn't 100% sure if I was ever going to accept the loan anyways. I already have an SBA loan with another business of mine, and I didn't really want to take on more liabilities through the SBA if I absolutely didn't have to. And as things are going, I didn't have to take the loan, so I most likely wasn't going to accept it anyways. So I definitely wasn't relying on this loan money, though it would have been nice to at least get an offer so I could review the terms and see if it was worth pursuing. With that being said, let's go over my denial letter, talk about what it contains, and then kind of talk about what the next steps are for you if you receive a denial letter. So the denial letter starts off pretty basic. It's just a standard denial letter. It notes my name, my address, my business name, my loan number, and then it goes, "Dear Aubrey Janik, in these unprecedented times, we understand the challenges you are facing. The SBA is making every effort to support small businesses, which are the backbone of the American economy. Unfortunately, we have made every effort to approve your loan request. We are unable to offer you an economic injury disaster loan, EIDL, for the reasons described below. We are pleased that we are able to give you an EIDL advance under this program, even though we are unable to make you a loan. We hope the advance funds will provide some relief in these difficult circumstances." Then underneath this paragraph, it says in bold, "unsatisfactory credit history." Then right below that, it states, "We evaluated your credit report and related information. Based on the information we obtained, we are regretfully unable to approve your application. We base this decision off of the information obtained by Experian. If you disagree with our decision, you may request reconsideration subject to the availability of funds. You can submit your request to any of the following: mail your request to the address at the top of this letter, fax your request, or email your request. Your request must be in writing and be received by this office as soon as possible, but no later than 6 months from the date of this letter. 2, contain all significant information that will overcome the decline withdrawal reasons. We understand that this is a challenging time for your business and for the nation. The SBA has local offices in your community, which can refer you to resources that may be able to help you address the underlying reason for your loan denial. For more information on these services, please go to www.sba.gov/local assistance. To locate the email address and phone number for the nearest SBA district office and/or SBA's resource partner, please call or email for a virtual appointment." So this is the entirety of the letter. It's just one page. It's really straight and to the point, but there are a couple of things that I think are interesting about this letter that I want to point out. One is that whenever it talks about your appeals process in your letter of reconsideration, it says, "Your request must be in writing and be received by this office as soon as possible, but no later than 6 months from the date of this letter." The reason why I find this interesting is because I received this letter on May 24th via email, but the letter is dated May 11th, meaning that this letter is dated 2 weeks before I actually received it. So that means that I cannot file my appeal 6 months after the date that I received it. It's 6 months after the date that this was written, which means that you lose 2 weeks for that alone. And so I think that that is important to note. And I don't know if that was something that was done strategically by the SBA's part. The longer they take to send these out, the shorter the period of time people have to appeal, or I don't know if it was just simply the time it takes to send these out is about 2 weeks. But regardless, I found it interesting that it was a 2-week lead time from the time that this letter was written to the time that I received it, and it was received via email. So I'm curious, like, what was the SBA doing for that 2 weeks between the time that they wrote the letter and the time that I received it? The other thing that I think is interesting is that it says in the denial letter, "We are pleased that we are able to give you an EIDL advance under this program, even though we are unable to make you a loan." The reason why I find this interesting is because more and more people are stating that they are not receiving a advance or a grant offer, and instead the SBA is only giving them a loan offer, and they're making the grant money contingent on the approval and the acceptance of the loan. And so I'm curious if these people who are reporting this are also receiving this denial letter, and if they are, does it have this line in here as well? Because I wonder if this is like a cookie cutter letter that they send to everybody, or I wonder if this letter is different for people who did not receive the grant in the advance because it was contingent on the loan. That's kind of a side point that I think is interesting, but I would be curious to hear from people who were denied the loan and also did not receive the grant, and I would be curious to see what was in their letter and if their letter had that line in it. And then my last point, and the last thing I want to point out, is that it's important to note that on these denial letters, it has the regional offices listed. And so for me, I'm in Dallas, Texas. And so it says that my regional office is in Fort Worth, Texas. And so it's important to note that because it means that my appeals process and where I send my appeal is going to be different than from where you send your appeal. And so it's important to keep that in mind because in the video that I made a couple of days ago talking about the appeals process and how to appeal the loan offer or the denial, I had stated that it's important to wait for your paper copy so that you know exactly why you're denied and you know what instructions you need to follow in order to file an appeal. And I think that that is an extremely important point that really justifies why you should just wait for this paper copy to come in via email, because you want to make sure that you send your appeals to the right location. And so for me, it gives me a fax number I can send it to, it gives me an email I can send it to, and it gives me an address I can send it to. And that information is correct for me being somebody that lives in Dallas, Texas, but that information is not going to be the same for you if you live in California or New York or Minnesota or whatever the case is. And so I definitely would recommend for you to wait until you get this paper copy because it does give you information on where you need to send it. And if you only have 6 months to file, and once you get your letter, it may only be 5.5, 5 months, I would absolutely make sure that you send it to the right place the first time because you don't know how many chances you're going to be able to get in order to try to appeal this decision. So guys, this was the denial letter. I know that this video may not be as informative as some of my other videos, but I know that there's a lot of people out there who are curious like what the denial process looks like. And for me, I applied at the end of March. I received my grant at the end of April. My credit was pulled about 2 weeks later in the middle of May. And then about a week and a half later, I received this denial letter. But based off of when my credit was pulled, I was probably denied a couple of days after my credit was pulled because this letter was dated May 11th. My credit was pulled like the first week and a half of May. And so it probably only took them about a day to decide that they weren't going to approve me. With that being said, I'm interested in seeing like what their threshold is for credit because my credit is in the low 600s, but I've had reports of people that have high 600 credit scores and they've also been denied. I've also heard from a couple of people that they have even lower credit scores and they were approved. And so I'm definitely interested in kind of seeing like how the SBA is determining what credit is satisfactory versus which credit is unsatisfactory. I don't know if we'll ever receive answers to that question, but I would certainly be interested in learning more about their process of how they determine who gets approved and who gets denied. With that being said, if you are interested in filing an appeal and filing a letter of reconsideration, I would definitely recommend checking out the video that I published a few days ago. I will link it above as well in the description below. And that video really talks through the process of how to file an appeal, what steps you need to take, and what you need to do in order to increase your chances of being approved during the appeals process. So guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope it gave you some insight on what the denial letter looks like, what it contains, and what you need to do in order to start the appeals process. Make sure that if you want to start the appeals process, check out the video I published a couple of days ago. But in the meantime, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.